I've never really been fortunate enough to get a game console the year it comes out. The only real exception to this is the Nintendo 3DS. Other consoles I've owned, I've ended up getting years after they came out. I got my GameCube about 4 years after it was released, and my Wii 3 years after its release. When I was younger, I received a Game Boy Color a few years after Nintendo put that one out, and closer to when I got my GameCube, I ended up with a Game Boy Advance SP about a year after the DS came out. At the end of 2011, I received my own 3DS. For once, I got something the same year it was released. The Nintendo 3DS is the successor to the Nintendo DS and came out in very early 2011. Like its predecessor, it has 2 screens. However, the biggest difference is that this device can display games in 3D, and you don't even need glasses to see it. Over time, I heard complaints about it not coming out that far, but I've never really found it to be that big of a deal. Plus, I actually liked how it would not only bring some of the image forward, but it would also shove some stuff off into the background. However, most 3DS owners don't seem to really use this feature a whole lot. Like the DSi, the 3DS had the ability to take photos with outer and inner cameras. This time there are 2 outer cameras to allow you to take 3D photos. A lot of the things you could do on the DSi, you could also do on the 3DS. This includes adding music to an SD card and listening to it on your 3DS, shopping for games and apps online, browsing the internet, and wireless local multiplayer. Flipnote would be added much later, but as an exclusive to Nintendo's rewards programs, the now deceased Club Nintendo and the current My Nintendo. Several new things were added this time, like the use of augmented reality and the ability to make Miis for use in games like you could on the Wii. Some DS games were capable of that, but there are only like 2 of them and one of them never even left Japan. There are more apps you can download that would allow you to watch videos, send messages to other 3DS owners, and some other things. For now, I'd like to discuss Miis. The 3DS comes with not 1, but 2 apps for them. The first is the Mii Maker, which is pretty self-explanatory. The big difference between the Mii Maker and the Wii Channel's Mii Maker is that you now have more options to customize your Miis with, and this time there's more of a focus on the editing part. The other app is the Street Pass Mii Plaza. To get the best experience out of it, you would have to use a 3DS feature known as Street Pass. To use Street Pass, all you have to do is pass by someone that also has a 3DS, and as long as both of you have Street Pass and wireless communication enabled, you'll be able to send information to each other's systems. Not only does it get used in this app, but in several of the other games you play too. What it does for those games could be something as simple as exchanging items or even courses. In the Street Pass Mii Plaza, you'll collect Miis from others, and you'll be able to use them in a few minigames. However, you can only use the ones you just Street Passed. If you want to play a game without Street Passing, then you can spend play coins, which are a virtual currency you get by using a pedometer. To do that, all you have to do is walk around with your 3DS in sleep mode, which you can do by closing it while it's on. For every 100 steps, you get 1 play coin. However, you can only get up to 10 a day, and it caps at 300. Not only can you spend these on the Street Pass Mii Plaza minigames, but you can also use them in other games as well. Over time, more features like DLC would be added to the Street Pass Mii Plaza, but at first, all you could really do was play the minigames and view the records. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the Nintendo eShop. Here you can download all kinds of games and apps. The biggest difference between this and the Wii Shop and DSi Shop are that you don't purchase points to spend. You either enter codes from eShop codes or enter your credit card number to add money to your eShop account, in whatever currency your country uses. Like you could on the Wii, you can actually buy virtual console games. Since the 3DS is a handheld system, you can now get Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and even Game Gear games. Sadly, the only way to get Game Boy Advance games was to buy the 3DS early enough, which I didn't. People that bought a 3DS when it cost a lot more would get 10 Nintendo Entertainment System games for free, along with 10 Game Boy Advance games. The only part that upsets me is it's the only way to get the Game Boy Advance games on your 3DS, without hacking. But that's not the only dumb restriction. On the 3DS, you can also get Nintendo Entertainment System games and Super Nintendo Entertainment System games. The sad part is the latter is exclusive to the new Nintendo 3DS, which is an enhanced version that has more powerful hardware to handle a lot more games, and is supposed to run faster and have better 3DS features. It doesn't really make sense to make these exclusive, considering they definitely could run on a regular 3DS fine. I guess they just wanted the new 3DS to have more exclusives other than Xenoblade and Minecraft. The only 2 new 3DS games I know of that have retail copies. Virtual console games aren't the only games from previous systems you can buy. Like the DSi Shop, you can get most DSiWare. What's odd is DSiWare can be saved to your system, but 3DS stuff can only be saved to your SD card. These are just some of the things you can do with the 3DS. But how are the games themselves? Well, the 3DS comes with some built in. The first is called Face Raiders. It's a first-person shooter where you're supposed to shoot at pictures of faces you've taken. The game uses augmented reality, so it will make use of your 3DS's outer cameras while you're playing. When you make it far enough, you'll have to fight a boss. This isn't the only game that uses augmented reality. With the 3DS is an app that will allow you to play minigames with a few cards that come with the system. To start, load up the app and get your 3DS several inches away from the question mark AR card, and then you'll get some options. You can draw and mess around with the looks of your surroundings, take pictures with the AR cards that feature different Nintendo characters, take photos with your Miis, play the handful of minigames, and play around with different tools. It was a nice little distraction, but I don't really find myself coming back to it that much. Anyways, these are just the games that came with the system if you didn't get some kind of bundle. The commercial games, physical or digital, are displayed in 240p. This seems to turn some people off from the system, but take it from a guy that doesn't like to watch YouTube videos, anime, or other shows in less than 720p. It really isn't that bad. As cliche as it may be to say that graphics aren't everything in a game, they really aren't. If you let the 240p thing bother you, you're gonna miss out on some great games. Some of my favorites include Super Mario 3D Land, Mario Kart 7, Super Smash Bros., Tomodachi Life, Tetris Axis, the Professor Layton game, most of the Ace Attorney games, and the Etrian Odyssey games. The 3DS is also backwards compatible with DS and DSi games, so I've been able to play a handful of games I had previously missed, such as Hotel Dusk or the first Layton games. DS and DSi games are not compatible with the 3DS's 3D effect, and I've heard the games look a bit worse on the 3DS than they did on the original DS systems. Considering I never really owned them and haven't really touched one of them in years, I never really minded how the games looked. While playing DS or DSi games, you are not able to access the home menu without exiting whatever you are playing. Things are different for 3DS games and apps. You are able to suspend whatever you're playing and access a few apps without closing it. The first can be used for making notes about your games or drawing pictures. Next is the friend list, where you can register friends, see who's online and what they're playing. You can also set a favorite title, which is limited to 3DS software, and a custom message for your friends to see. You'll also be able to see how long it's been since your friends have been online, assuming they have Show Online status enabled. While you're playing 3DS games or the systems in sleep mode, you'll receive notifications via Spot Pass or Street Pass. The latter I've already discussed, but anyways, the former is pretty much just when your 3DS receives information from the internet. It could be news about upcoming games or apps, updates to software you already have, information about future events, or when someone's interacted with you through certain apps. The last thing you can currently do with software suspended is use the internet browser, which is real helpful when you get stuck in a game and need to look something up right away, and it would be inconvenient to get to a computer or something. Unfortunately, it runs pretty damn slow. Anyways, that's all the things that you can still do. A handful of things about the 3DS have changed over time. For example, the look of the home menu. For the longest time, we were forced to just look at a boring theme with all of our software scattered around. One day, Nintendo decided to add folders so that we could actually organize our games. Now it's much easier to find what you're looking for. Home menu themes eventually came, along with a theme shop where we could spend money on different looks for our home menus. Other ways to get themes include getting them for free after purchasing certain games, or earning them by spending points on My Nintendo. If you don't want to spend anything, there are a handful of free themes to choose from. Before you get anything, you do get some options already. You can either keep the original theme, or change the color to whatever you want. You can also save layouts for your home menu and load them up later if you want to easily switch between them. With the eventual arrival of Nintendo's Badge Arcade, a free-to-start game, you could play and earn badges. You could use up your free plays and be done with it, or you could spend money in order to earn more in the same day. The badges that you get can be used to decorate your home menu. You can either place the images on folders, or use the open spaces to put stuff together. All this stuff is cool and all, but I have yet to talk about one of my favorite things to come out of 3DS system updates: Miiverse. For those unfamiliar, Miiverse is a social media platform made by Nintendo themselves, intended for discussion about their games and franchises, divided into different communities. Users were supposed to give their thoughts and impressions, or even ask for help if they got stuck. While this is what a handful of users did, a large portion of Miiverse users used Miiverse differently. I was actually one of them. Several people would go to different communities and post stuff that was completely irrelevant or just really stupid. I won't lie, I had a lot of fun pretending to be stupid on here, but eventually I decided to put that all behind me and post only stuff that followed the rules. Nintendo did notice how many people were using Miiverse inappropriately and decided to take action by changing how our posts were organized and limiting us to 30 posts a day. Sadly, comments were a part of that restriction. I can kinda understand restricting comments, but why was it under the same post limit as main posts? I'm not sure what kind of logic Nintendo was using, because this definitely didn't get people posting what they were supposed to. I know Miiverse was intended for discussion about games on their platforms, but an off-topic community likely would have helped. It wouldn't have eliminated the spam, but I'm sure it would have greatly reduced it. These people that would post irrelevant stuff would hang out in one community for a while before being forced to another. For example, a lot of people would hang out in the Super Smash Bros. Community until the 3DS and Wii U games came out. This caused their posts to be buried by posts of people that own the games, as Miiverse would understandably default to favoring player posts. Other communities they took over included the Legend of Zelda community, the Wii Fit U community, and the YouTube community. Apparently the last one was deleted and brought back because they were embarrassed by it, I assume. As you've probably guessed, that didn't even fix the problem. Nintendo wasn't the brightest when it came to Miiverse stuff. Not sure why a Miiverse stage in Smash Wii U was thought to be a good idea, and now we know it was a mistake. One of the absolute worst communities on Miiverse was the one made for New Super Luigi U, not only because it was a victim of a shitload of spam, but because it was also a constant victim of hacking. People would change the banner or even upload pictures they shouldn't have been able to. People had been able to upload pictures like that to certain communities before due to some glitch, and here they are doing it again. The New Super Luigi U community remained accessible, however, it was understandably removed from search. Though I do have to wonder why it couldn't have just been deleted. Eventually, in November of 2017, Miiverse was shut down, and users that hadn't been permanently banned could request to receive their Miiverse history. While I have been banned a few times during my time on Miiverse, luckily I wasn't by the time Miiverse was ending. Even for those that didn't get their history, a good chunk of Miiverse posts have actually been archived. Even without Miiverse, I still have fun on my 3DS, whether it's playing an exclusive or a port. If I'm honest, I usually only play it when I have a game I'm really into at the time, and it's not hard to find one to get into since the system does have a solid library. Sure, there are some turds, but every system ever made is going to have some bad ones. Now, the 3DS is in its last years, and it's kinda sad to see it slowly fading away, and even sadder that people are demanding its immediate death now that the Switch is out. As long as people are still buying games on the 3DS and Nintendo is still interested in making games for the system, they're gonna do it. We also have games that came out in the past few years that may or may not be considered for localization. I wouldn't get my hopes up for some, but I'm sure that some titles that haven't made their way out of Japan yet will eventually be localized. When a game is announced for 3DS, people are always going to demand it be on the Switch, even though I don't think some games would work as well on the Switch. Etrian Odyssey. Some games just won't feel the same. Whether you agree or disagree with me, I still think the 3DS is a great system.
When I was in the middle of editing this video, Nintendo announced the Nintendo Switch Lite, which is the Nintendo Switch, only it's a handheld only, so I guess the 3DS is kinda dead now, but Nintendo still insists that they're supporting the system. I don't know, whatever. I still like the 3DS though.